What we do here is go back.
Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast here for episode 36. Welcome back. Hope you've had a great week. I hope even in all the hysteria and all the things that are going on with this very serious situation that's taking place worldwide with COVID-19, aka the coronavirus, that you're still finding joy and you're still finding opportunity, and you're thinking innovatively as our personal lives and our professional lives are having to evolve. And that's really what this is. It's unprecedented, folks, territory for us, because most of us are not 200 years old or 500 years old or 10,000 years old, right? So we have not seen these type of things. So it's hard to put it in perspective if you're listening to this and you're 20, you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, 70, 80, 90, maybe you're 100. Even if you're 100, you haven't lived to see anything like this, because some of the things we're going through are things they went through maybe even in biblical times. So again, continue to be positive, but be smart and be safe with your families, and think of the fellow man. You know, think of the college students, think of the homeless, think of the hourly workers, think of those that are vulnerable, our seniors, right? So think of those as you're going through. But again, I'm Chant Ron, Minding Your Business podcast. Subscribe, listen, share wherever you get your podcast content, or at themybpodcast.com. I'm excited about today's guest for a myriad of reasons. He's here with us. He's taking time out away from his family, away from his business, to join us here on the Minding Your Business podcast. And his name is Rich Allen with Toward the Profit. And we're going to learn some more about Toward the Profit. You're probably wondering what that is, if you're not already aware. But Rich, how you doing? I thank you for joining with us.
Ron, it's so nice to be on the show with you. Thanks for having me as your guest.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. And so what we want to do is let's jump right in, because we've got several things to talk about. And in reading your bio, I was very impressed as someone that's been groomed in business. And in banking, I led kind of retail and business banking teams. So these were frontline teams in sales. And, my role was, again, to coach and lead and inspire performance, to drive the goals and the initiatives of the organization. And you help businesses do that. But before we get into that, Rich, let's dig into your background, if we can. Tell us who Rich Allen is and how you got your start.
Ron, my start was probably not what most people experienced. But I grew up in Cleveland, so that might a bunch of your fan listeners may have just left. But I'm a Cleveland native, and I grew up in a very large family. I had 11 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
And so my dad was probably the hardest working guy that I ever knew. And when he turned 36 years old, Ron, he decided to stop working for the man, he was working 3 jobs at the time. Okay. And he made probably the boldest move of his life to go start his own business.
Wow.
And so at age 36, my dad took his old van, did a car wrap of the 1970s and started his own window washing business.
Wow.
And so, Ron, my dad was arguably the best window washer in the world.
Hardest working. Was he washing windows, Rich, for like companies like buildings or for vehicles or?
For individuals. So families, homes.
Yeah.
So but he would do anything. He was a handyman. He could do anything. He was great with people. Everybody loved him. But my dad had no clue how to run a business.
Mm.
And so he struggled for years. And we were, I was working with him. My brothers were working with him. My dad had this dream. He wanted to build this business and leave a legacy for his 8 sons.
Wow.
But he just could never figure it out. And he struggled mightily, and frankly, never got it figured out. He just thought working harder was the answer. Wow. And so one at a time, each one of us boys, we had our fill of it basically, and said, let's go figure out our own career, our own life path. So
Right.
I ended up in the military for a while, went to college, got into a corporate job, whatever. But I was always thinking about my dad, and I was always thinking, man, what was it he was missing?
Wow.
And so I became a student trying to figure out how a business really worked and how I could help guys like my dad really make their dreams come true. And that's kind of how I got into the business that I'm in today, Ron.
Wow. And so, so you've got 7 brothers.
I do.
Wow. And so your dad starts his window washing business. However, he doesn't have, I guess, quite the level of business acumen and that sort of thing to actually run it. So he knew the work part side of it, which and MYB, it's so true of so many of us, right?
Absolutely.
How many times have you heard, Rich, of people that they're great widget makers? They just don't know how to run the business of making widgets.
That was my dad. My dad. He could do anything.
Yeah.
But to think about how to run, organize, structure, plan out, execute a business and grow it and make it profitable, had no clue.
No clue. Wow.
And frankly, as a 14 to 16 to then 18-year-old kid, I didn't know either.
Yeah.
Right. So I was just slave labor. And at some point it was like, man, there's got to be something better than this, right?
Right. It's got to be. So Rich, as you're going through that, and you make the conscious decision then to help people develop their business acumen, their leadership, their ability to understand how to structure a business and how the process flow within the business, right? Did that lead you to college and university route, or how did you go about acquiring skill set for yourself?
Well, to be real honest, I was from a real poor family, right? We lived in the projects. There was no way I could go to school.
Yeah.
I got very, very lucky, was blessed. God blessed me and gave me a chance to have an Army scholarship. So I went into the military so I could go to college.
Yeah.
But Ron, what really did it for me was, as I was working, I would work for a couple of fairly well-known companies. One called Texas Instruments, small manufacturing firm or an electronics firm here based in Dallas. I also worked for Pella Corporation, the window company.
Okay.
And while I was working for Pella, I had always asked my boss, the CEO, I said, look, one day, would you let me run a business? Because I wanted to see if I could do it, because I've been studying.
Yeah.
So about 3 years into my tour with Pella, my boss came into my office and he gave me a key. We had just bought a small manufacturing business in Minnesota. And my boss said, Rich, this one's yours. And so I got to go run this business. And it was a $30 million business. We had about 200 people in the business. So it was small relative to the size of the corporation.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to go see if I had what it took to run the business.
Okay.
And Ron, that was the time when I walked into the plant for the very first time. I had no clue what I was going to do. I was scared to death. And I walked around for days, literally for days, just meeting people, shaking their hand, ask what they were doing, just being curious. And then about 2 weeks into the deal, the place where all great ideas hit you, in the shower, I had this idea, and it had to do with this bike that I have.
Yeah.
And I got everybody together. We had a big meeting, cleared out part of the warehouse. I brought the bike in, and I told the guys that this isn't a bike, this is our business. And if we could understand how our business is like this bike, we could tune up our business and make it go really fast. And so I used the bike to explain to factory workers how a business worked. And Ron, it was amazing. For the very first time, they all understood how a business worked. Well, I wasn't talking over their head. I was talking to something they absolutely knew.
Yeah.
And over the next 7 years, we took this business from $30 million in revenue to over $100 million.
Yeah.
We took the top end of our position, and our biggest competitor bought us out.
So, Rich, how did you make the correlation with them? Obviously, from an analogy standpoint, right? I imagine you're comparing some parts of their process that they're doing to the bicycle. So, what was that? Unpack that for us.
Yeah. So real quick, what I told them was, look, guys, I don't know this business. I didn't know how to manufacture the doors we were manufacturing. I said, you know it. But what I need you to know is how we're going to make this business work and make it run.
Right.
And so I said, let's use the bike. And I said, we steer the bike with handlebars. How are we going to steer the business? I shared with them of the vision that I wanted to have for the business. I talked about the framework and how the structure and how it held everything together on the bike and what was going to hold our business together, the structure and the organization and the accountability system.
Yeah.
Right. I talked about the two wheels, the front wheel being winning new customer, the back wheel being serving customers, the two things that matter most in business.
Right.
And how we had to balance both of them.
And probably how they work in concert. I mean, the
right.
two wheels have to work in concert. One can't be spinning and the other one still, right?
Exactly.
So they both have to be moving in concert.
And see, on a bike, if your wheels are going at different speeds, you're going to wreck.
Right.
In business, if your wheels are going at different speeds, you're going to wreck.
Right.
Right. So, and then, we talked about the seat being the place where all of them were going to sit. So what we needed to do is work together to adjust the seat so that it was so comfortable for them to get on the bike that they would pedal really hard. And that meant hiring the right people, going through an orientation program, having the good compensation programs, having the right benefits programs, having them involved in the business, those kinds of things to make the seat adjustments.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was it, man. And we just, and Ron, everybody, you've been on a bike. I've been on a bike. Everybody's been on a bike. We all know what it's like to ride a really nice one.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what it's like to ride one that really is crappy.
Yeah.
And I said, let's not make this a crappy ride. Let's make it a fun ride.
Hey, there you go. Yep, I love that. Rich Allen is our guest today here on the Minding Your Business podcast with Tour de Profit. And so you're building this business where you're developing this reputation now, Rich, of coming in and at what it sounds like at a very again grassroots type of effort. It doesn't sound like you're coming in with this corporate mumbo jumbo. You don't appear to be a guy that's coming in with a white shirt and a red tie and looks like a government agent, and you're coming in looking at financials and that sort. You sound like a guy that's coming in and working with the people, right? What type of industries, you mentioned there being there in this manufacturing environment. Is that typically the type of businesses that you work with, or do you work with kind of a myriad of industries?
No, what I've come to realize, Ron, is that all businesses work the same. We all have a different product or service, but fundamentally, all the things we have to do to make a business work, they all fit the model.
Yeah.
And so what I do, and you're right, look, I'm a big proponent of speaking at the level that people can understand and inviting them to help us make it work. Right. And I think that's where most business owners go wrong, is that they tend to think they're the smartest people in the room, or they have all the ideas and everybody else is just going to execute their ideas. I don't like that thinking.
Right.
I want everybody in it. And oh, by the way, I want everybody to win when we win.
There you go.
So we got to put in place programs so that when we make profits, everybody gets a nice check out of the deal.
Yeah. And you know what I like about that, Rich, is, and I opened the show with kind of continuing from my last episode about we've got the pandemic with the coronavirus. And what I tied in with what you said was where I think, this particular situation we're all dealing with now is going to help shape that notion that ideas and intelligence within business is not centralized at the top, right? And that companies that have a flat, open, type hierarchy to where ideas are flowing from both directions to this and able to be then executed from all directions. Those are going to be the companies that are going to survive this new normal that's being developed now, that's going to come. Where, of course, companies are now realizing that, hey, my workers can work from home. Well, that's been the case for the last 3 or 4 years. It's just they had to get out. Something had to force them away from that old corporate mindset that I've got to oversee somebody, right, to feel comfortable with what they're doing.
It's interesting, and I told you, Ron, I love your take on this whole situation that we're dealing with. But here's the thing that's really true, right? We shouldn't take. We need to turn off the radio, turn off the TV, and not spend our time lamenting or worrying about what's going on. We ought to take this opportunity while there's a bit of a pause,
Yeah.
and do something that we don't do very often in business, and that is sit back, take some time to think, take some time to plan. Take some time to think about how we're going to make our business better, how we're going to use our employees or team members in a more effective way, maybe in a way that's unique and different than our competition. But look, we don't often, most times, most business owners are too harried chasing customers and business and issues that they don't have time to do this. Okay, great. We're right here. We have it right now. Use it. Bring your team in. Let them be a part of it. Redesign, re-engineer your business. Now's a perfect time to do it.
Yeah, it certainly is. And so, with doing that, because you've got experience in your business, Rich, of doing just that, of helping people somewhat re-engineer the mindset, right? And then how leadership then takes that mindset and instills through coaching and development of their team. Talk about that coaching and development for a second, because I think a lot of folks that are listening to this that are maybe early in their business walk, or maybe they're in corporate settings, how important it is with what you do to inspire and engage teams and teammates. Because, again, in my background, my success came from that transparency and my ability to take my experiences, right? So in banking, one of the things that helped me, I didn't walk in out of MBA school into the bank. I had been groomed at all levels. I've been through the management training program. I mean, all the way up to the executive level over the whole department. And I always maintain that level of transparency and, that collaborative nature to then make decisions, right? And so how do you come into a company and then help that leadership engage and inspire their team? Sometimes it's entry-level workers, sometimes it's upper and senior management. How do you help them do that?
One of the things that we do, one of the strategies that I use, Ron, which is I think, a lot of times we discard some things that they do in corporate settings. We think they're kind of too bureaucratic or too structured for us. But there's one that I think's a real diamond in the rough that many small business owners avoid. And that is this whole notion of what's been termed continuous improvement. And here's the way that I try to think about that. I like to break the business down into a lot of different parts, a lot of different processes, small processes.
Sure.
And then bring your team together, or bring members of your team together, and let it and go around the business, get different people involved, but engage them in the process of looking at that small process, making small tweaks to that, making adjustments to it, and then basically inputting that new process into your business, and do it every week. In other words, make the person that's not gonna succeed, the person that's gonna go stale in their business, is the one who does the same thing year after year. The one that's gonna win is gonna be the one that every time you turn around, they're doing something different. They're doing something better. Small things here and there, not by their own wisdom, but by the wisdom of their collective team. And what I've found is that people really get energized by that, Ron. They just get really fired up.
Yeah, because when you constantly have that innovation and then it's open again and transparent, and there's inclusion, right? And from that inclusion, that creates then the diversity of thought into ideas, which leads to ownership. And that's what I hear of what you're saying is you've got to convert workers into owners. There was a time where, companies would offer ownership opportunities and shares and stock like that in the companies. And what that did was it just simply allowed workers to take a ownership stake into what's going on, which helps them get involved with ideas. That helps. And because the ownership or the leadership knew that there was owners all around, they viewed everybody as an owner, right? So now I'm amongst, even though we all have different roles, I'm amongst peers. It's not this hierarchy of, I'm the deity figure. and all of you are my subjects, and I'm going to send down tasks, and then the tasks have to get done, and then I reward you for doing the task. And in this environment, you're exactly right. I think that the folks that are constantly looking at that ongoing improvement, and they don't take this dogmatic view of, because of the way I made money yesterday, is how I'm gonna make it today, and it's how I'm gonna make it tomorrow. Or I was successful in whatever time period before to be successful in running my business, or how I saw someone else run the business, or how someone from the past told me how it should be done. So I'm holding on to that tradition, that automatic tradition, and then I spread that to my people. And then I'm trying to figure out why there's a disconnect and why the people aren't following what I'm trying to do.
Right.
It's because, like you said, they're doing the same thing year after year. And this environment, I think, is forcing some people, and that's where some of the fear is that it's forcing some folks to get outside of that old dogmatic mentality, Rich, to what you're describing.
Totally.
To then begin adopting a more higher level and higher order of thinking into their business, because the environment changes quick. This thing with the coronavirus, right? Not to harp so much on it, but because it's happened so quickly, and in today's society, we don't get, I remember I was sharing this with someone, we were laughing, Richard. You and I are old enough to remember this. You remember when the internet was first kind of coming to the consumer market, and probably from 1991 till about 94, 95, they kept talking about the information superhighway is coming, and you're going to be able to connect and network with people through these computers, and it's going to make everything so much more efficient and communicating. Imagine the day when you could communicate in mobile and all that. Well, they gave us years to plan for that, right?
Right.
I guess, what's his name, former Vice President Al
Gore, right?
Al Gore, I guess he invented the internet. And so then we had
we won't spread that rumor.
No. But you know what I mean? But see, with this, 2 or 3 days ago was a different mindset to what it is today, right? And so the world is going to change so expeditiously, Rich, that what you're explaining is going to be so much more critical. And I think those that resist it are going to be exposed so much more than ever in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Ron, I love that thought. And, here's something I often tell people, in situations like this, when you have something that's unexpected, it's viewed largely negative. It has an impact on business. I like people to think about this as if a hurricane were coming into Houston, Texas, right? There are two types of people, right? There are those that, actually 3 types of people. There are those people who get out, they leave, they see it coming and they quit.
Right.
They get out of town. There are others who hunker down. They board up, they hoard stuff, and they stay in and they're going to ride it out. But the third type of person is the person who's the looter. They're the person who goes out and they take advantage of everything that everybody has left uncovered.
Right.
And what's going to happen right now, Ron, is that a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations are going to hunker down.
Mm-hmm.
And those businesses that can use this time wisely, and those individuals that can use this time wisely to reinvent themselves, to re-engineer their process, to think differently about their business, to serve their customer in a different way, perhaps, they're going to take business from others who are simply hunkered down.
Yeah. No, definitely really good thoughts and a good dialogue with this, Rich. Rich Allen, again, our guest with Tour de Profit. And so let's get into something with your business. Now that we've learned some more about kind of what you do and the impact that you make, Rich, how many people are on your team? Walk us through how you kind of built your team up, because obviously it's not just yourself. So how did you build your team up, and were there growing pains in building teams?
It is, and again, having run a large manufacturing business, I will tell you, when I started working with people as a business coach, essentially, I thought the idea of having no team members was a beautiful thing, right? Because I had a couple hundred people before. So, but I've now grown my team to about 4 or 5 people. They're all virtual. So we spend a lot of time virtually. So this kind of activity doesn't change what we do, our behaviors. We just get together virtually as we do in our weekly meetings. We do things, each one of us has our assignments. And honestly, I believe it's the way that a lot of business is going to be done going forward. Is we've got to learn to communicate, inspire, motivate, kind of hold people accountable, have people take ownership even when they're not sitting in the same room. And that's what we've been doing.
Yeah. And so with that, what's your advice for companies now? Because one of the things that we're talking about in this new environment, this new normal that may be coming, or that is coming for all of us, is that. And so for companies and organizations that are new to having remote teammates, right? What are some things you would advise them, from a leadership standpoint, and whether it's from a corporate level or for those that are starting their business and now they're going to have remote teammates? Because as you and I know, like we were just talking, for some that is difficult because they want to feel like they can, in the communication channel, read facial expressions and body language and that sort of thing. And so some of that is that lack of trust that folks tend to have. So, what is some advice for those folks that are looking to build up their kind of remote culture?
Right. Yeah. So I would say there are probably a couple of real critical things. One is you have to embrace technology, right? I'm older than the average guy. I'm 65. I had to learn how to do this web technology, right? If I would have just said, look, that's not my thing, I would be far less effective today.
Sure.
And so anybody that's going to do this, you've got to embrace the new technology, because I suspect this is just going to simply accelerate this idea of us getting together virtually. Second thing is I would put discipline around the way that we get together as teams.
Yeah.
So just because we're not in the same room, look, we don't have to all have the same, get coffee from the same coffee pot or sit in chairs. It actually costs us less to do that. But we have to build the discipline in to do regular check-ins, to do regular updates, to actually connect with our people just as if they were in the same place, right? The fact that you're in Memphis, right? I mean, I'm
Right.
here, it shouldn't matter. We ought to be able to be just as effective. But
Right.
we have to put that into the discipline of our business. And here's where that's going to be a problem. Many business owners or many small businesses don't put that discipline in even today.
Right.
Because they're all right there, and if they need somebody, they can just walk over to their office and grab them. You can't do that when you're virtual. So you have to build discipline into the structure of communication of your business.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Rich Allen, our guest today with Tour de Profit. All right, so Rich, what do you see that's next for your business? Obviously, there's an evolution taking place in business, as it always is, and there always should be. Where do you see things landing? Where do you see the plane landing kind of with all this? And where do you see your business best aligning once that plane lands and there's this maybe new way of doing business, or there's some new strategic and tactical methods that are going on as people do business, and not just as people do business, but how people consume, because in America, we're a consumer-driven society. And a lot of industry is predicated, each person is predicated on the next person, right? Even like I say again, use Jeff Bezos, for example. He comes in, he stays in the hotel. Someone's got to clean that hotel. Someone's got to take his reservation. He goes to the restaurant. Someone's got to prepare his steak or whatever he's eating. His transportation. So they're all, everything's interconnected. So where do you see this plane landing with the whole thing that's going on globally? And then where does your business fit?
Yeah, it's been interesting for me to watch. I've been doing this for now about 15 years. And I will tell you, Ron, that for probably the first 10 to 12 years, I was a firm believer that if you got the bike right, that if you structured your business correctly, everything would be great.
Yeah.
But I forgot one critical thing. And I think this is what's going to make the difference in business success in the future. And that is, I can have a really nice bike, but if my team isn't pedaling hard, my nice bike isn't going to go fast.
Right.
So that's why right now I'm laser focused on helping people understand what it takes to create what I'm calling a radically engaged team. And
Okay.
that doesn't mean just people that show up to work and they do a good job and they stay for a few years so they hang around. I'm talking about people who come in with the desire, the enthusiasm, the passion to really make the business something you haven't even thought about yourself. How can you put a team together of people that have that kind of mindset?
Right.
What does it take for us to do that? And I think, particularly as we go more and more remote and we have more and more situations where we're not going to get together in large groups, I think it's going to be important that we have a team of people who have this personal inside desire to make the business successful because it means something to them more than just doing what their boss hopes will happen.
Mm. Yeah, and I love what you just said right there at the end of essentially, again, like we talked about, people have to develop an ownership, right? And you got to inspire and instill an ownership. So, and people have said this about millennials. Of course, not always the best things about millennials, but one of the things that they say as a general kind of area that they excel in is that sense of purpose. That
Right.
when they're in a work situation, they want to have a sense of purpose that's bigger than just maximizing shareholder revenues and profits. That's bigger than just how big of a building they can work in and how many people they can hire and how much PTO they can have and all this type of stuff, right? Or how much they can contribute to 401k. They want to know that what they're doing makes a difference. So
in the world.
Goals makes a difference with that company and their community and the entire kind of population. That the company is fiscally and environmentally responsible. That's something else that's bigger with people now. And that there's transparency and ability to have their voice heard. And the flexibility to have that entrepreneurial sense of let me understand the risk within what I do, and then give me the flexibility within my role to create where I see opportunities to create that, again, rolls to this common goal. So it's not just this mundane task of here's the job description, here's what I want you to do, and then only thing outside the job description is going to come from me as the leader. I'm going to tell you what you do outside the job description. And I don't want you doing anything else other than this job, right? And that's been a past thing for the last 10 years with organizations. I don't want you baking cookies on the side. I don't want you doing podcast. I don't want you doing anything else. Rich and Ron, I want you, here's the assembly line. I want you making widgets. And
Head
I want
down.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, that's changing. And I think that's going to make a huge impact.
Yep. Look, man, you're on my team. I can already tell. You get it. I think this is, and honestly, if you look around at the businesses that are really taking off today, they don't have a sales team because everybody's in sales. Right. They don't compartmentalize people into doing one thing or another. They let everybody bring their best self to the business. And as a result, they have better relationships with their customers, right? They create more value, and the business grows because the people are really fired up. You can see it when you walk in a restaurant, a shop, whether you're getting your car serviced, whatever. You can tell whether they're there just to punch the clock or whether they're there because they love this business. And that's what we got to do. We got to create that environment that people can do that.
And I think what's going to happen is the best organizations, Rich, are going to do this. There's going to be this environment where instead of hiring Rich Allen and Ron Brooks, they're hiring Rich Allen Incorporated and Ron Brooks LLC as the person. And so you're coming in as an entity, right? Who brings this value, who brings these experiences, but also brings this creativity so it's going to be more B2B with people. I think what's going to happen. And so the way I say that is when, I may have a conglomerate that's, conglomerate LLC, but within that, I've got 20 that used to be employees, but they're really 20 business owners that we've come together in the co-op and said, here's what we want to do. Our common goal is to make, dog bowls. So dogs have something to eat out of, and we make them in all different sizes, right? So then your experience with dogs, my experience with dogs may be different, using that as an analogy, but you may bring from Rich Allen's Inc. Your mindset is then, well, how do we improve that? Let me go and do some sampling of some dogs. Let me see them meat. Is the bowl too big? Is it too deep? Is it not deep enough? What about for small dogs, bigger dogs, certain breeds of dogs?
Exactly.
How does it maintain its clean? Is there a way to help it maintain its cleanliness? So you're doing that and bringing that to the table. And then my experience may be from the dog owner standpoint. Hey, how much am I willing to spend on the dog bowl? How many of them do I need? How many dogs does a typical dog owner have? I may assess the experience from the person side. And then you and I bring that to the table, right? And then, with, whoever's in leadership, we're bringing that, we're having this discussion, and leadership saying, okay, yeah, what you're saying, Rich, makes a lot of sense. We may need to make the bowl 2 inches deeper to allow for more food. That's going to allow for 12 more ounces of food that allows for this and allows for that. And Ron has assessed it from the owner standpoint, and our cost from an R&D is going to be an extra $1.50 per bowl, which generates this for us and generates that. And oh, by the way, Jane over here says, hey, with this extra revenue, we'd love to be able to donate to Doggies Foundation that helps for lost puppies and lost this, right? And so now you've got, versus just in the past, employees where the leader just comes and says, Rich and Ron, we got to get this bowl out next week. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to have a conference call today. We're going to have a 2-hour conference call, and we're going to talk about this. And then we're going to have a 3-hour conference call or meeting to talk about that. Right. And we're just doing tasks. And I think what I'm describing is that view of us being more as owners to the point to where you and I may partner within the business, even though we've got different scopes of the business. The environment may allow you and I to collaborate, and then we may create a spinoff company that the owner says, hey, we're going to set up financials. I want you to be the president, kind of like what credit unions do with QSO, right? Where, we're going to find this, and then we're going to sell this to other some of our competitors who make dog pans. We're going to copyright and trademark this, and then we're going to sell this to, whoever, and it's all going to run, we're all doing well, but now you and I are engaged in that. Now we've got an ownership. So now we view it different. We work at it differently. We interact with each other differently. It's not about how much sick time I can use by the end of the year. And, so that adversarial piece of the job market
goes away,
right? Because we're all owners. So we're viewed differently. And so I love, this conversation because I see so much of what you're saying and how this is going to be driven here in the future.
Yeah. So to your listeners, just a final thought on that, Ron, is look, if you're in the role of having people work for you, you've got to have that mindset that that's what you want from your team. If you're in the role of being an employee or being a team member employed by somebody, you got to change your mindset, and you got to bring that. You got to bring that Inc., that LLC, me LLC attitude and approach to the business. And if you do that, I'm telling you, those businesses are going to be the most powerful in the future, I believe.
Yep, absolutely. And so, Rich, as we start to kind of wind down, I always like to ask, those that come on this particular podcast, and MYB community knows where I'm going. Take us back to that day, that the toughest day you've had in business, that day where, and many of us have had that. And I've had some folks come and they've had a day, they've had a week, they've had a month, they've had a year, they've had multiple years of this. Take me to that toughest day where you almost gave up, if you had that happen. And if you did, walk us through that day. And obviously you're still here. So what kept you going? Because there's people listening to this podcast that are struggling. Right now they're not sure. You may be in the service industry listening to this, and you're saying, well, hell, Ron, I don't have the opportunity to work from home. I'm here at this restaurant. I'm here at this hotel. I'm in the gig economy. I don't have that opportunity, right? I'm hourly, and the NBA just shut down, right, for however long they're going to be shut down. So
Right.
I may not be getting compensated like I normally would when I'm working these games, Major League Baseball, NCAA tournament, whatever it is. So, let's help these folks out. Walk us through that tough day, Rich, and what within you kept you going.
Ron, this may be, let me see if this fits, because I understand what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
I'll tell you honestly, my toughest day. My toughest day was when I came home from a week-long travel trip that I would normally take with my the business I was running in the manufacturing world. I'd leave on Monday. I'd get home maybe late Friday. I happened to get home early enough to put my young daughter to bed one night.
Okay.
She was 7 at the time. I said, "Let me read you a book." And she said, "No, I want mom to read me a book." And I said, "Come on, let me do it. I'm not here often to do it." And she said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" She said, "You're not my dad. You're my uncle."
Wow.
And she had demoted me to uncle status. And Ron, that was like a stake in the heart, very honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Because, here's why and so I will tell you, I walked down from that, told my wife something's got to change. That was about the time that we made the change to get out and start my own business, do something different. But here's what I would say is that for me, working is designed to let us enjoy a life. Working isn't our life. And so we've got to keep that in perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was making a lot of money. I was doing really well. I was doing great in business, but my personal life was suffering.
Mm.
And I see a lot of people who don't have the right perspective around work and life.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know whether that helps somebody right now who's really maybe seeing their paycheck cut back as we go through this deal. But here's what I would say. It's part of the reason why we always tell people put some money away for a rainy day. This is the rainy day, right? Yeah. So I hope they did that. If they didn't, it's going to be a lesson that they're going to remember, and they will make sure they do for the next time. But don't miss this opportunity. Don't go deep into a funk and miss the life that you've been given, the family, the kids, the wife, the husband, right? Those sometimes we get so worried in this moment,
right,
that we become we forget about who our spouse wanted to marry or who our kids enjoy as our mom or dad. And we can't let that was happening to me.
Yeah.
And I had to remember what mattered most.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very well said, Richard. That's a great reminder for us all as we go through these times, and just for any time, because it's very easy to lose that perspective as you get caught up in all the cares of business and all the cares of the things you hear on the media and all the cares of your boss telling you to work from home, and again, all these million things that swirl around our heads, all these concerns. That we've got to forget that there's a life to live.
This will pass.
Yeah,
we'll get through this.
Yeah,
we're survivors.
Exactly. And then you still got to live your life, right? Yeah. And so while you have life, you're here to live it. And so
that's exactly right.
I think that's a great point. And so, Rich, this has been phenomenal. Man, I appreciate you taking time.
Thank you.
Your contact info is going to be in the show notes, but why don't you share with people, someone that wants to, continue the dialogue with you, someone who's, maybe running the business and struggling, or maybe they're running the business and they're having success, but maybe it's not the right kind of success, right? And it's not sustainable. Yeah. So how can people get in contact with you and your team?
Yeah, it's very easy for me. It's my website is my business name, Tour de Profit. It's like Tour de France, like the race, Tour de France, TOURDEPROFIT.com. I did put up a page, Ron, that's minding your business. So tourdeprofit.com/minding your business. I put a couple of free resources there. Your
Yeah.
folks are welcome to take advantage of that. And there's some ways for you to reach out or learn more about what we do.
Yep, excellent. So listen, Rich, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm very passionate about this. I see that you are as well. I love to remain connected. Thank you so much for taking time to be here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Best wishes to you personally and professionally. And man, we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Ron. Keep up the good work, man. You're doing great work.
All right, man. I appreciate it, Rich. Thank you so much. All right. Excellent. 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 All right. So that was Rich Allen, who is the principal owner of Tour de Profit. Y'all make sure y'all connect with him at tourdeprofit.com. You can email him, rich@tourdeprofit.com. Definitely check out the website with the freebies that Rich offered. That's at tourdeprofit.com/minding your business. tourdeprofit.com/minding your business. Listen, Champ Ron, that was episode 136 in the books. Thank y'all so much. As you know, we are powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Shout out to everybody that's on the Binge. Check out all the great shows and content at onabinge.com. And we want to continue to grow the network. So if you're interested in podcasting, interested in sharing your voice, now's a great time as people are going remote. That means they're going to have a lot more time to be able to dig into content, particularly from a podcast standpoint. So make sure you're getting involved now. Email me, ron@themybpodcast.com. Check me out there. Check us out at themybpodcast.com. Minding Your Business Communities on Facebook. Check me out on social media at Champ Ron. And we're going to keep this thing going. And just be positive, be safe, be healthy, and represent for yourself and your family. Live life. Legacy living. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast.
What we do here is go back.